Hi everyone, and welcome to Splash Page. With the upcoming Netflix series Sweet Tooth premiering on June 4th, we thought it would be a great idea to start getting a few videos outlining the story as well as the major characters. These videos will include massive spoilers for the comic and likely for the show, so if you don't want to know what happens to the main characters, feel free to drop now. With that said, let's jump into our first character spotlight. Today we're going to talk about who I view as the main character of Sweet Tooth, Thomas Jepperd, or Jepperd as he's known throughout the story of Sweet Tooth. This breakdown will be in chronological order and not the order that it appears in the book or likely in the show. In the show, Jepperd will be played by Nunzo Anozie. Jepperd was a professional hockey player before the virus came along and killed the majority of humans around the globe. He was on the fictional Minnesota Wildcats. The actual Minnesota hockey team is named the Wild. He's a large, strong man who is also very quick to anger and allows his emotions to dictate a lot of his actions, which gets him into and out of trouble throughout the series. Jepperd was married to a woman named Louise. When the pandemic started, Louise was expecting her first child. Jepperd and Louise wanted to stay in the house. However, as the pandemic raged on, they started to run out of food and didn't have any doctors around to help with the impending pregnancy. So Jepperd talked Louise into leaving their home, promising her that they would return one day. They had heard of safe zones where Louise could safely deliver her child throughout the United States. It was imperative that they found a place to deliver their child safely, as they started hearing rumors of birth defects and hybrid children being born half human, half animal, which they both refused to believe. As they were traveling to a safe zone, they were attacked by cultists who were attempting to kidnap Louise. They saw she was pregnant and they believed that her child would be a hybrid. After Jepperd kills one of them, he turns to find the other one has a knife to his wife's neck. Then, out of nowhere, a bullet blows the head off of the cultist, and we are introduced to Abbott, who claims to run a safe zone. So Jepperd and his wife go back with Abbott. Immediately, they regret their choice as he separates them and forces Jepperd to live in a cage. The only updates that Jepperd gets on his wife are from Abbott's brother, the timid Johnny. Johnny also tells Jepperd that the reason Abbott is doing what he is doing is because he's trying to figure out why children are being born hybrid and if they have anything to do with the virus killing off the majority of humanity. He then shows Jepperd some of the children, so all of the rumors that Jepperd has been hearing are true. One day, months later, Johnny comes to Jepperd and lets him know that his wife is in labor. Jepperd, who had been growing a relationship with Johnny, pleads with him to let him out of the cage, and surprisingly, Johnny does. As Jepperd runs into the facility to save his wife and child, he sees other pregnant women lying in labs. He then encounters Abbott and his men, who beat the living crap out of Jepperd. Rather than killing him, they throw him out of the compound and tell him that both his wife and his child died in childbirth. Abbott then taunts Jepperd further by saying if he comes across any other hybrid children to bring them here and he'll give him a reward. From there, we don't really know what happens to Jepperd until he stumbles upon two hunters trying to capture a half-human, half-deer child named Gus, and that's the start of Sweet Tooth. After Jepperd kills the two hunters, he talks Gus into traveling with him to the preserve, a safe zone for hybrid children. After some resistance, Gus comes along because he's tired of being alone. Jepperd is cooking dinner, something that he killed, and Gus refuses to eat it because he will not eat any living thing. So Jepperd gives Gus a chocolate bar, and based on how much Gus loves the chocolate, Jepperd gives him the nickname Sweet Tooth. As they walk, they go through a little town and see what appears to be another hybrid child. This is a hybrid between a human and a rabbit. However, when they break into the house and try to find the hybrid child, it turns out to be a young prostitute wearing bunny ears named Becky. She is being forced to be a part of this prostitution ring by a man named Jacob. And after some negotiation, Jepperd escapes with his life and Gus's life, but leaves the prostitution ring to continue to run, even though the women look like they are in dire need of help. However, once they do get outside, Gus is very upset and Jepperd has a change of heart. So once his conscience gets the better of him, he sneaks back into the house and kills Jacob. There we meet Lucy, who becomes a pretty significant character throughout the comic as well, and she asks to shoot Jacob's wife. The women are now free from their captivity, but decide to stay where they are and take their own chances rather than traveling with Jepperd and Gus. Here's where the story turns. It turns out that the preserve does not exist, and Jepperd actually betrays Gus by giving him over to Abbott and his militia. For his trouble, we see that Jepperd gets a orange duffel bag or hockey bag and walks off without much of a look at Gus. Jepperd then drives back to his house, where he lived before the pandemic, where his wife didn't want to leave, and he convinced her to leave by promising he'd bring her back. We see that the hockey bag, or the duffel bag, is filled with her bones. He buries her in the yard, completing his promise. Since this is done, we see Jepperd contemplating taking his own life, but he's unable to. Whether it's guilt or fear, we don't know. However, he is still looking to die, and we know that because he goes to a city and picks a fight with some men. The men start beating him up, but he refuses to fight back, which kind of freaks out the guys that are beating him up, so they immediately stop fighting and walk away. Jepperd then decides that he needs to fight Abbott and save Sweet Tooth. He first heads back to the prostitute's house, realizes that Lucy was a woman he saw before, as she was one of the other women who was held in captivity by the militia and by Abbott, and they stole her baby as well. They decide they need to attack and destroy the militia compound and set the hybrid children free. However, they cannot do so themselves because there's so few of them. They need an army. He then convinces Lucy and Becky to go with him to the Cultists headquarters and demand to speak to their leader, Glubhelm. After a tense meeting, Glubhelm agrees to help Jepperd as he wants more hybrid children, and they have been told that there are many at the militia camp. They launch a full-scale attack and are able to kill most of the militia. However, Glubhelm sees Lucy and Jepperd sneak away into a house in the compound and follow them with his 5 half-human, half-hound hybrid children. In the building, they run into Abbott as Lucy and Becky run to find the hybrid children. Jepperd stays back and decides he needs to fight Abbott. And while this fight is closer than their first fight, Abbott does get the better of Jepperd again. And if it wasn't for Johnny stepping in to help Jepperd, Abbott would have killed him. Johnny shoots off some of Abbott's fingers, causing him to retreat, but Johnny obviously is no longer safe at the militia camp since he just attacked his brother and helps Jepperd escape. As they're running to the hybrid children, they see Glubhelm and his hounds are attacking Gus and a few of the hybrid children, as well as Lucy, Becky, and Dr. Singh. Jepperd helps them get through another door safely. However, one of the hybrid children named Buddy is being bitten by one of the dogs, and Jepperd decides they can't save him. As the door is closing, Buddy turns, looks at Jepperd, and says "Dada." The realization hits Jepperd that Abbott had lied, and his son survived the birth, and now Jepperd has just left his son to be eaten. Dr. Singh tells the group that he believes the answer to the plague and the hybrid children can be found in Alaska based on some of his work with Gus when he was a captive in the militia compound. He talks the full group into traveling north, so now we have Dr. Singh, Gus, Becky, Lucy, a hybrid child named Wendy, who is half human, half pig, a hybrid child named Bobby, who is half human, half gopher, Johnny, and Jepperd, all traveling to Alaska. Wendy, Becky, and Lucy go on a scout and get trapped in a net. A man with crutches approaches them and helps them out of the net, then invites them and the full group to go back to his house that's located in a dam. He says his name is Walter. He is a part of a group called Project Evergreen, who has been getting attacked by an outside force. Jepperd helps take care of the attackers, and after they spend some time there, the group decides to break up. Wendy, Bobby, Lucy, Johnny, and Becky all decide to stay back at the dam with Walter. Jepperd, Gus, and Dr. Singh decide that they will continue to make their way to Alaska. Jepperd tries to find a car or a snowmobile to help them in their travels, and he is told that there are some dangerous attackers that live nearby. It tells Dr. Singh and Gus to hang back. As a man comes out, Jepperd shoots him with an arrow in the shoulder. However, after a little scuffle, it comes out that the real Walter has been dead for years, and the man pretending to be Walter is a man named Haggerty, who is a local boogeyman or evil man who has been attacking and has killed many Project Evergreen original team members. The people he's currently talking to are the surviving group from Project Evergreen. Jepperd, knowing this now and knowing that his friends are potentially in danger, attempts to go back to the dam to save them and kill Haggerty. However, as he's doing so, he crashes the car that he's been given, and when he comes to, a large bearded man named Jimmy Jacobs has captured him. There is a mutual distrust between Jepperd and Jimmy. However, Jimmy has a sense of familiarity with Jepperd, and he can't put it together why he knows him. After some tough questioning, Jimmy realizes that he knows Jepperd from being a pro hockey player, as Jimmy himself played for the Wildcats' rival, the Plymouth Hounds. Having this in common, and that Jimmy hasn't seen anyone he's known or trusted in years, Jimmy instantly becomes Jepperd's right-hand man and goes to the dam with Jepperd. By the time they arrive at the dam, Lucy, Becky, and Gus have managed to kick Haggerty out of the dam and into the frozen wilderness. Since Jepperd has been gone, Lucy has contracted the virus, and in a shocking twist, dies immediately after Jepperd arrives, as she can finally relax, thinking that Jepperd is out there to protect the rest of the group. After burying Lucy, the group moves on, and Bobby and Johnny decide to stay at the dam. Unbeknownst to Jepperd, Abbott had tracked down the group and gets to the dam only hours after they had left. They interrogate Johnny and Bobby and find out that the group has gone to Alaska. Once they arrive in Alaska, Gus sees animal footprints in the snow and finds that there are 6 other hybrid children hiding out in Alaska. They find Dr. Singh, who had run away from the group while they were back at the dam, and Singh explains that he discovers that an underground tomb exists where he believes the hybrid children and the virus had been released. Based on this, Gus and Jepperd want to go to the tomb. Jepperd and Gus discuss if they think that Gus and the hybrids are connected to the virus and the plague, and Jepperd says he does. It's just too much of a coincidence otherwise. But he says it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what happens from here on out. Then they see Bobby, who was left behind at the dam, and Bobby lets them know that Abbott is coming. So they begin to set up their defenses. The plan is to have Becky and the hybrids sneak out once the fighting starts. As Abbott's men approach, they hit some of the booby traps that were set up, blowing up their trunks. Then there's a shootout in the streets, and both Jepperd and Jimmy are able to get to the steeple of an old church, and they radio Becky to leave. However, Becky and the hybrid children are seen leaving by Abbott's men. So Jepperd tries to get to the kids as Jimmy steps up and stays back and attacks Abbott's men outside, managing to kill a few of them before he himself is killed. Jepperd runs into Dr. Singh as they drive to where Gus is, but Abbott is already there. Jepperd and Abbott begin to yell at each other about how Abbott's goal of killing the hybrids and figuring out why they can survive the virus is worthless. It's over. The hybrids will inherit the earth. Then Abbott pulls out his wild card, Buddy. Jepperd's son had survived the earlier attack, and Jepperd now has to choose between his son and Gus. But then the hybrids that Gus met when he first got to Alaska jump out and help them. Jepperd is gravely injured by fighting some of the feral dog hybrids that were working with Abbott. Even with the injuries, he decides he has to go after Abbott, as Abbott has run to the tombs where both Dr. Singh and Jepperd said that the virus started. Jepperd tells Gus and the rest of the group to stay back, and if he doesn't return shortly, to leave Alaska. Don't wait for him, don't come after him. Jepperd then sneaks into the tomb, and as he does, he attempts to sneak up on Abbott, but slips off of the ladder and breaks his leg. They begin to fight, but Jepperd, now with a broken leg as well as all of the cuts and bites he received from the frogs, is getting worked by Abbott. Abbott also stabs Jepperd in the back, and Buddy, his son, sits there in shock, unable to help. But right when we think Abbott is going to kill Jepperd, Gus stabs Abbott through the throat, killing him. However, because of the injuries Jepperd has sustained, he passes away, with his final words being encouragement to Gus to keep going. Jepperd's death is in the second to last issue of Sweet Tooth. The final issue recounts about 20 to 30 years later, and what happens with all of the hybrids. I won't spoil that here, but I hope you enjoyed this video getting to learn more about Jepperd and what a badass he is. I absolutely cannot wait to see how they handle his character in the show. Thanks everyone. Please like, follow, and subscribe to this channel, as we will be doing more Sweet Tooth content, as well as continue doing our weekly videos about Invincible. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.